Welcome to the Covert Investigation channel. Here I have another story for you, which I do hope you will enjoy. I would also like to thank you for your interest in my channel, as it's very much appreciated. And if you like the story, could you please like and ring the bell, as it helps the channel to grow. Thank you once again, and here's hoping you like the story. Patterns have been appearing in farmers' fields for hundreds of years. Elaborate, impressive, huge, and often beautiful. Many would call them works of art, almost otherworldly in nature. The formations appear in fields of grain or corn, where the crops have been flattened to create the display, and had long been thought to be the work of extraterrestrial beings, perhaps using strong air currents to beat down the plants. In the 17th century, some thought crop circles to be the work of the devil. However, in more recent times, the believers are clear on them being the work of creatures from outer space. The term crop circle was coined in the early 1980s after a spate of formations appeared in the 1970s and popularized the idea that alien forces were at play. Southwest England has long been the hotspot for the appearance of these elaborate patterns, but similar circular formations have also been discovered in swamp reeds and sugarcane fields in Australia and grain fields in Canada. In 1991, two British men came forward and admitted they were responsible for hundreds of crop circles created in the Southwest since 1978. They claimed to have used planks of wood and rope to flatten the crops and loops of wire to help them walk in straight lines. To prove it, they created one of their now famous circles in front of journalists and called upon an expert to assess it, pretending it was a new discovery. The expert deemed it to be the real deal, before they were informed it was created by human hands. There were plenty of instances of crop circles elsewhere in the world, but it was thought that the two British men had sparked an army of copycat crop circle makers who have only grown more skilled and begun to create more sophisticated formations over the years. Crop formations are even used for elaborate marketing campaigns, with the Olympic rings and Star Wars Rebel Alliance emblems are two such examples. While the scientists claim they are all man-made and the work of dedicated hoaxers, true believers claim there are real formations among the fakes, as they claim to be able to tell the difference. Some think crop circles are created by lightning strikes so powerful that they must be controlled by something, while others believe they are created by spaceships and are a sign of otherworldly beings attempting to communicate with us on Earth. 1947, a pilot flying over Puget Sound in Washington State, USA, claimed to see a strange formation in the sky ahead. Startlingly, he allegedly saw a string of 9 shiny spacecraft whizzing past nearby Mount Rainier at high speed. Reports from the ground were a little different, speaking of 6 very large donut-shaped aircraft, one of which began spewing forth what seemed like thousands of newspapers, which fluttered down to the ground. These newspapers actually turned out to be pieces of very lightweight white metal. The sightings received news coverage across the country, with the press quickly adopting the term flying saucer, whilst 2 witnesses garnering much attention, some of it quite unwanted. The morning after their encounter, they claimed to have been visited by a so-called man in black, who had been able to recount in specific detail what they had witnessed and warned them not to speak further of the incident or bad things would happen. The sightings were later ruled to be a hoax, discredited and widely accepted to have been entirely fabricated by the 2 men. However, they later spoke of deciding it was easier to confess. It was all false, to having made the whole thing up rather than losing sleep over further potential visits and threats from the sinister man in black. In extraterrestrial terminology, a flap is a series of similar sightings of UFOs in the same area over a short period of time. One famous flap occurred toward the end of 1896 over California, USA, when reports streamed in of mystery airships spotted in the sky at night. Eyewitnesses described vast crafts that could travel at great speed, while others claimed to have glimpsed the occupants whom they thought were human, but displayed unusual clothing and behavior. Strange lights in the sky were also reported in 1896 to 1897, and in the age before commercial flight, this was taken rather more seriously by both the public and officials. Newspapers splashed stories across their front pages, with headlines shouting, "As large as a big whale," and "Strange craft of the sky." Reporters like to speculate that the airships were from Mars or Venus. Science fiction writers of the time, such as H.G. Wells and Jules Verne, spun tales of submarines, airships, and extraterrestrial forces, although it is undecided as to whether the sightings of the mystery airships of the late 1800s influenced their work or vice versa. In the early hours of Boxing Day in 1980, in remote Rendlesham Forest in Suffolk, UK, several witnesses claimed to have seen some unusual festive guests among the trees. U.S. Air Force security guards on patrol from the nearby Royal Air Force Base reported strange red lights in the woods. Upon further investigation, they discovered what they believed to be a triangular spacecraft in a clearing on the forest floor. One witness stated that the craft, or its inhabitants, broadcasted numbers directly into his brain before it rose into the air and departed at great speed. The police were called and found what could have been landing marks on the ground and broken branches, alerting them to the presence of a heavy object. Incredibly, later that evening, the security personnel reported yet more lights in the forest and believed the spacecraft had returned. They found more damage to foliage, as well as scorch marks. After hours of keeping watch, in the early hours of the following morning, a light was observed along the tree line of the woods. The security team pursued the light for quite a while, claiming to have seen changing bright colors as it moved across the sky, skirting the tips of the trees. The UK Forestry Commission has marked the site with a monument to the 1980 UFO sighting. The black, galvanized steel sculpture of the spacecraft is based on drawings supplied by the security guards who claim to have seen it. The sculpture sits at the heart of a UFO trail that leads visitors through Rendlesham Forest to the spot where it all happened. In September 1961, in the mountains of New Hampshire in the USA, unassuming couple Barney and Betty Hill were driving home from their honeymoon in Niagara Falls. They spotted a strange light in the sky that appeared to be following them. The light zigzagged across the road, disappearing behind trees and mountain ridges, only to reappear again. They stopped by the side of the road and observed through binoculars what Betty described as an object spinning in the night sky. They returned home, but by this point it was dawn, and several hours had passed without their realizing. They both felt a sense of unease as well as an overwhelming dread. They had forgotten something. During the course of the evening, their watches had stopped working, and Betty found that her dress was ripped, while Barney's shoes were scuffed. In the time that followed, Barney suffered from physical aches and pains, and Betty experienced unsettling dreams. Betty called the local U.S. Air Force base to report the sighting of the spinning disc, but it was decided what she and Barney had actually spotted was the planet Jupiter. So, in an attempt to understand what they had seen and experienced, Betty found a book on UFOs and wrote to its author. He suggested hypnosis might help the couple to get to the bottom of their mysterious encounter. After several months of hypnosis sessions, the findings were remarkable. Barney and Betty were assessed separately, and both recalled being led from the road and onto a spaceship by short, pale gray creatures with large eyes set in an oversized head. Their description would cement this depiction of aliens in popular culture for decades to come. They said the extraterrestrials wore military uniforms and went on to describe the medical examinations they were subject to aboard the craft. As well as providing a rough sketch of the spaceship itself, Betty also drew a star map she claimed to have seen during the abduction. Experts thought this could possibly be an interpretation of obscure star system Zeta Reticuli, which can only be seen from Earth in very dark skies. The Hills experience was one of many to be investigated by the secretive U.S. government arm Project Blue Book, which compiled and recorded official inquiries into more than 12,000 UFO sightings from its inception in 1952, until it was disbanded in 1969. The couple collaborated with writer John Fuller to tell their story in his best-selling 1966 book, An Interrupted Journey, which, should you be so inclined, features the verbatim scripts of their hypnosis sessions.
Welcome back. If you liked the story and would like some more, could you please subscribe, like, and ring the bell, as there will be more stories to come. And once again, thank you for your interest in my channel. It's very much appreciated.